Welcome to the story of Muammar Gaddafi, the controversial and polarizing figure who ruled Libya for over 4 decades. In this video, we will take a closer look at the life, career, and downfall of one of the most enigmatic leaders of the modern era. Early life and military career. Muammar Gaddafi was born in a small desert village called Qasr Abu Hadi in central Libya. He was born into a Bedouin family that was part of the Al-Qadhafa tribe, one of the country's largest tribal groups. His father, Abu Minir, was a herdsman who traveled with his family in search of pasture for their camels and sheep. Gaddafi's early life was marked by poverty and hardship. He attended local schools and was known to be a good student. In 1961, he enrolled in the Royal Military Academy in Benghazi, the country's second-largest city. There, he studied military tactics, strategy, and political theory. After completing his military training, Gaddafi returned to his home country and quickly became involved in politics. In 1969, he led a group of army officers in a bloodless coup that overthrew King Idris I and established the Libyan Arab Republic. Gaddafi was only 27 years old at the time. Political career. Following the coup in 1969, Muammar Gaddafi became the de facto leader of Libya. In 1977, he declared the country a Jamahiriya, or a state of the masses, and introduced his own political philosophy, known as the Third International Theory. The Third International Theory was Gaddafi's attempt to create a political system that was different from both capitalism and communism. It was based on 3 principles: democracy, socialism, and self-reliance. According to Gaddafi, this system would enable Libyans to have greater control over their own lives and would help to build a more just and equitable society. In practice, however, Gaddafi's rule was highly authoritarian. He suppressed political opposition and dissent through a network of security agencies, including the Revolutionary Committees and the General People's Congress. These organizations were responsible for carrying out arbitrary arrests, detentions, and torture, and were notorious for their brutality. Gaddafi also cultivated a cult of personality around himself, portraying himself as a revolutionary hero and a champion of the Libyan people. His image was plastered across billboards, posters, and public spaces, and his speeches were broadcast on national television and radio. Despite his oppressive rule, Gaddafi remained popular among some segments of the Libyan population, who saw him as a symbol of their country's struggle for independence and sovereignty. He was also known for his support of Pan-Africanism and his efforts to promote African unity and solidarity. International relations. Muammar Gaddafi's foreign policy was often controversial and provocative, particularly in his support for various terrorist organizations and militant groups around the world. He believed in using Libya's resources and influence to advance his political goals, both domestically and internationally. One of Gaddafi's most notable international interventions was his involvement in the Libyan-Chadian War, which began in the 1980s. Gaddafi supported rebel groups in Chad, hoping to destabilize the government and expand Libyan influence in the region. The conflict continued for several years, with both sides accusing the other of aggression and human rights abuses. Gaddafi was also involved in the Arab-Israeli conflict, supporting the Palestinian cause and calling for the destruction of Israel. He provided funding and arms to various Palestinian groups, including the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, and Hamas. Gaddafi's relations with the West were often strained, particularly after he expelled foreign military bases from Libya and nationalized the country's oil industry. In 1986, the United States bombed Libya in retaliation for a terrorist attack in Berlin that was attributed to Libyan agents. The attack killed several people, including 2 American servicemen, and led to a further deterioration of relations between the 2 countries. In the years that followed, Gaddafi continued to provoke Western powers with his support for terrorism and militant groups. He was accused of being involved in several high-profile terrorist attacks, including the bombing of Pan Am flight over Lockerbie, Scotland, in 1988, which killed 270 people. Despite his controversial foreign policy, Gaddafi also sought to position himself as a leader in the developing world, particularly in Africa. He played a key role in the establishment of the African Union and was a vocal advocate for African unity and solidarity. He also used Libya's oil wealth to provide aid and support to other African countries, particularly those facing economic and political challenges. Downfall and death. In 2011, a wave of protests known as the Arab Spring swept across North Africa and the Middle East, including Libya. The protests were largely fueled by widespread frustration with authoritarian regimes, economic inequality, and political corruption. In Libya, the protests quickly escalated into a full-blown civil war, with rebels seeking to overthrow Gaddafi's government. Gaddafi responded to the rebellion with force, using the country's military and security forces to crush dissent and quell the uprising. The conflict quickly became brutal and protracted, with both sides accusing the other of human rights abuses and war crimes. The international community also became involved in the conflict, with the United States, NATO, and other countries providing military and logistical support to the rebels. The aim of the intervention was to protect civilians from Gaddafi's forces and help the rebels achieve victory. In October 2011, rebel forces captured Gaddafi in his hometown of Sirte, ending his 42-year rule of Libya. He was subsequently killed, although the circumstances of his death remain controversial and contested. Some reports suggest that he was captured alive and subsequently executed by rebel fighters, while others suggest that he died in crossfire during the fighting. Gaddafi's downfall marked the end of an era in Libyan history and the beginning of a new phase of political and social change. However, the aftermath of his death has been marked by ongoing instability and violence, with various groups vying for power and control in the country. Libya remains deeply divided and faces significant political, economic, and social challenges as it seeks to build a new future.